Hey guys, so it's been a while since I've done a video on this channel, but today I want to talk about the topic of sleep paralysis. One thing that I realized just looking back at experiences that I have had personally is that I could identify kind of four main areas where something has triggered or induced sleep paralysis in me. And then I was thinking about the different kind of caveats around that and what it actually indicates and what it means. So there are a lot of people that, they experience sleep paralysis maybe just naturally, and it's kind of, it's kind of freaks them out because they get into this state where they are aware, but they can't move, they feel like they can't speak, like they're paralyzed. And this has been attributed to, demonic attack. A lot of people that, go through the alien abduction experience also experience this. And then there are a lot of people that maybe experience it but don't really attribute it to anything. They just kind of think, oh, this is just a weird dream or, something like that. The way that I look at this is that so in one of my other videos, and this is an older video, you can check it out on this channel. But I talk about how I think that it is proven that our consciousness survives death. I think there's more than enough evidence for that. A lot of people have experiences where they physically die in a hospital, and it's it's measurable that they are dead. The brain activity and their heart activity is no longer functioning, and they basically come out of their body. And they see what's going on in the hospital around them. They see what's going on in other rooms and outside, and then they are revived. And they come back into their body, and then they report what happens. And there are a lot of documented cases of this. There's been studies done on it. It's basically proven. So what happens, in my opinion, is like when you're sleeping. So we are physical beings. We have a physical body, but we also have a spiritual consciousness that, like I said, that is proving. So we know we're physical, we know we're spiritual. There's two different things. And your consciousness is basically awareness. Okay, so for example, if you were to sit and meditate right now, you would hear your own thoughts, you would feel feelings, you would just be aware of these things going on inside of you. You'd be aware of the sensation of your physical body. You would be aware of memories you have, your imagination, but that awareness at the center of it all is the actual you. So you are not the thoughts that you hear in your mind. You are not the thoughts that you think, because if you can be aware of something else, that means that something else is not you. It's not the core of you, right? So your physical body, your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, and anything else like that, that is not you. You are at your core conscious awareness. So the reason I say that is because when you are sleeping, your physical body, you may start dreaming, you may not remember anything, but your physical body and your consciousness, you're not aware of anything while you're sleeping other than if you were to dream, right? And when you're dreaming, your consciousness, your awareness is pulled into that dream as though you were actually experiencing it. And so what sleep paralysis is when for some reason, and there could be a multitude of reasons, your awareness during sleep is either awakened, meaning that let's say that you were sleeping and you just, nothing was really going on. You weren't dreaming. It's just your awareness was not really awake, so to speak, while in your sleep. Right? And something happens, basically, sleep paralysis is when something happens that pulls your awareness out of that kind of slumber, right? Or let's say that you're dreaming and that basically something could happen that pulls your awareness out of that dream. So that now your consciousness is aware, but your physical body is still sleeping. So this is the key, is that the physical body is still asleep, but the core of you, the spiritual core of you, is now aware and awake. That's about the best that I can describe it. Now, the main thing about this video, and the reason I'm making this video in the first place, is to go into kind of four main areas where, four different things that have actually triggered sleep paralysis for me. Because some people will say, oh, sleep paralysis, that's because of, demons. Or they'll say, oh, no, it's just totally natural. It has nothing to do with that. It's just a thing in your sleep. And both are right, to be honest, because let's break it down. Okay, so let's just take the idea of sleep paralysis being caused due to demonic activity. First of all, I think that there's more than enough evidence also to show that malevolent spiritual entities are a real thing. Whether those are human spirits or they're fallen angels or whatever they are, right? There could be a lot of arguments either way on that. But there are malevolent spiritual entities. Just like we have a conscious awareness, a spirit that separates from our physical body after death, there are, for whatever reason, malevolent spiritual entities that do attack human beings. This is a real thing. So if someone was asleep and a malevolent entity decided to attack them in their sleep, and that was the trigger that pulled their conscious awareness out of a dream or out of their sleep, but their body physically did not wake up, number one, they would be in a state of sleep paralysis, meaning that the body is basically... Before I continue, actually, one thing I should say is that the physical body paralyzes itself. Okay, this is a natural thing. The physical body paralyzes itself during sleep so that, let's say that you start dreaming, you're not thrashing and tossing and turning and hurting yourself while you're sleeping. It's a protective mechanism. This is a biological thing that actually happens. So let's say that the trigger is a malevolent entity, and you sense this, and it pulls your conscious awareness out of a dream or out of your kind of slumber state. And now your physical body is still sleeping, so you feel paralyzed. And at the same time, you are consciously aware of this entity, right? That's not a dream. Like that's a real thing. But you're in a state of sleep paralysis at the same time. So that's one trigger. And of course, I have experienced this myself. For me, because I could not scream or speak or I could not move. In my mind, I just called out the name of Jesus, and that solved my problem. Jesus' name, I think, got this thing to go away. And that's happened multiple times with me. So the second thing that can cause sleep paralysis, number two, that I have experienced is just a nightmare. Now, it could be argued that maybe these malevolent entities could perhaps cause a nightmare, but in my experience, there is a distinct difference between a dream and when you are consciously aware during sleep paralysis of another being, entity, in your room or in the vicinity of where you're sleeping. So a nightmare, though, where you're having a bad dream, that could definitely, if the dream is bad enough, and this happened to me one time where the dream was really bad. I don't remember exactly what it was. I might have been being chased by something or something, like that, where it was very terrifying in the dream. And I realized it was a dream. Okay, this was when I was younger. I remember I had one of these dreams, and so I was like, oh, this is a nightmare. And I was like, okay, so I understand. I was like, great, I understand it's a nightmare. I need to wake up. I need to wake up because then it'll all be over. Well, what happened was, so what this is, and this is similar to lucid dreaming, right? In lucid dreaming, you're dreaming, but your conscious awareness becomes aware that you are dreaming, right? And then you can actually play around with the dream. But in this case, I didn't want to be in the dream anymore. I wanted to get out. So my conscious awareness now is aware and awake. I'm still dreaming. I'm still sleeping. And I was fighting really, really hard. And I was like, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. And then I thought I did wake up. And I was in my room. I was in my bed. And I was looking around the room. And everything looked like I was looking through a glass fishbowl. Like it was very blurry. But it was my room. It was my bed. And I was like, something's not right. Something's not right. And then I realized, like, I'm not awake yet. My body's still physically asleep. Now, I didn't feel, quote unquote, paralyzed so much, other than the fact that I realized that I couldn't really move around. Like I could look around. So in other words, my awareness, again, the awareness was there, my consciousness was aware, but the body was still physically sleeping. So I couldn't really get up, right? This is what freaked me out, was like I felt trapped in my sleep. And I was like, okay, I can't wake up. How do I wake up? And I was becoming kind of panicked. And then finally, I really physically woke up, and I had to like pinch myself to make sure I was actually awake. So that's the second thing I think that can cause, a state of sleep paralysis. And it's number one, malevolent entity. Number two, just a nightmare where you become aware that it's a nightmare. Number three is actually just certain drugs or medications. So I actually, for a while, was having trouble sleeping, and I was prescribed a medication that basically turns on a certain function in your body chemically that induces sleep. It basically induces the body to shut down. And so this was kind of a stressful time in my life, and my mind would always race at night. And I would take the medication, and if my mind was racing too much, my conscious awareness wouldn't shut down. My consciousness, my awareness would stay aware, but my body would start shutting down into sleep. And I felt the exact same thing. You feel like the pressure on your chest. You feel like someone's pushing on your body. You feel like you're paralyzed. You can't move. It's kind of scary. It's not something that you enjoy, obviously. And so, a lot of people, if they were to experience that, not knowing it was drugs that was doing it, like an actual medication, they would probably think, wow, seems like a demon's like pressing on my body, or someone is pushing on me, or, like I'm paralyzed or I can't move. But it is a physical phenomenon. It is not phenomenon, it is a physical. It's just what your body does when it wants to shut down and actually sleep. So that is the third trigger, I think, that can cause it. And then the fourth thing that I've experienced was I slept in one morning pretty late in a room I was staying in. This was actually in Miami, where I used to live. And the sun during that time of the year was actually shining directly through my window onto my bed. And I slept until like noon or something, or, it was like, it was just really, really late for me to sleep. And the sun actually like woke me up internally, meaning like my consciousness, my awareness became aware because of the sunshine. And it was kind of this, so it must not have been a very deep sleep for it to trigger that, is my assumption. But what happened there was my awareness was kind of able to kind of move towards one of the walls in the room. Again, like my physical body obviously was not moving, was not able to do anything, but my awareness was able to move towards one of the walls in the room. I'm not sure which wall it was. And it was really crazy because on the wall there were all sorts of kind of triangular, different spiral, different like patterns, very similar to what people, I guess, would describe when they see or when they go into like a DMT experience, when they're doing something like that, psychedelic kind of experience. There was like a symbol on the wall with like a line through it, a circle, like almost like a do not enter kind of a symbol. And I put my quote unquote hand, whatever my spiritual hand would be, into this, to touch this thing. And very kind of crazy experience. My quote unquote hand didn't touch any wall. My hand started to go through that wall. And what was kind of weird is that I was having this experience next to the wall, and at the same time, my physical body, in my mind, I started to feel a very loud buzzing noise. And this is what people would describe, people that practice, what's that called? Not remote viewing, astral projection, where their conscious awareness leaves their body and they go and, kind of run around. That is what they describe as kind of a loud buzzing noise. And usually for them, it'll kind of pop or something will snap or happen, or, they'll pop out of their body basically. But for me, I'd never experienced this before. And I put my hand through the wall, I guess, right? There's my spiritual part of me. And physically, though, I started hearing this loud buzzing in my head. And it was like a physical vibration that I could kind of audibly hear in my mind. It got very loud, very quick. And that kind of jolted me back into my physical awareness, and I woke up. So, but the whole experience, I believe, was kind of triggered by the fact that there was a lot of sunlight in the room, which allowed for kind of maybe a different state of sleep, or it allowed for my conscious awareness to kind of be awake and aware while my body was still sleeping. So I think all of these things are very much related. In the way that I understand and see things is that, like I said before, we have a physical body, we have a real spiritual consciousness, and your consciousness, it can leave your body, and in that state, like if you were to die, for example, I believe that everything would be very clear. Your conscious awareness would be very clear. You'd be able to see, things quite like it wouldn't be like looking through a glass fishbowl like I did in that other experience that I explained. And the reason I think that would be is just because when you are still attached and tied to your body, you kind of view things through both lenses. The last experience that is not so. I'll explain one other experience here briefly that kind of relates to all this. But again, the whole point of this video is just to say, like, if you're the kind of person that says, any kind of sleep paralysis experience, oh, that's just a demonic attack, that's the demon. Like, a lot of Christians might think this way. They think like anytime they had a sleep paralysis episode that it was a demon attacking them. Well, that very well may be, but it very well may just be a case of sleep paralysis because of a natural, normal nightmare. I'm not saying that those entities don't exist or that doesn't happen. I'm just saying that it could be multiple things. The abduction phenomenon is also real. And so those entities, whether those are actual ETs or they're just fallen angels or they're, whatever they are, I don't think that they're very good beings, first of all, and I think that it's very possible that they are indeed demons. But a lot of people that experience UFO abductions, that experience usually starts with sleep paralysis, because if you are being abducted while you are sleeping by likely a spiritual entity, or at least an entity from another dimension that is, malevolent, like that would cause your conscious awareness to wake up, and you would be in that state of sleep paralysis, and then, the abduction experience would commence. But to say that any time you have sleep paralysis, you're being abducted, I think that would also not be true, right? Like, that's obviously not true. So I think that kind of this all or nothing, it's all this or it's not kind of thinking is not good. I think people need to have a integrated kind of like way of thinking about these kind of things. You need to kind of look at all different sides and perspectives of it. The last thing that I will say about these types of experiences, and I know this is turning into kind of a longer video, but that's okay. I like doing this kind of content. And I'm sure there's someone out there that enjoys listening to these stories. The last experience that I had that relates to all of this, now it doesn't maybe relate necessarily to sleep paralysis, but it kind of ties into this whole category of your conscious awareness experiencing things while your physical body is still in a state of sleep or near to sleep. Number one, I've had an experience where I was in a dream, and in that dream, I don't remember what I was saying, but I know I was talking to God, and whatever the conversation was, I don't remember, but at the end of the dream, I very clearly remember that I was facing God, and I told God, or asked God, I said, God, please forgive me. And I don't remember exactly what it was specifically that I was asking for forgiveness for, but it was in the dream, it was very heartfelt, and it was coming from me personally to God, asking for forgiveness. And I think I understand possibly what it was that I was asking forgiveness for. If I could guess, I won't get into that necessarily right now, but I woke up physically. So I was lying on my bed, and I was on my left side. And I had my head on the pillow, and my eyes were closed, and so all I could see was the back of my eyelids, obviously, and it was dark. So it wasn't like the light was coming in my room or anything, and it was still dark in the morning. And there was this very bright white light coming from my right-hand side, and I was lying on my left-hand side, and my eyelids were closed, but the inside of my eyelids began to be illuminated. This thing was so bright. Shortly after that, it was a very strange experience. So my conscious awareness actually moved out of my physical body very briefly. So if my body is here, basically lying on my bed, my conscious awareness moved out to view like my entire body, and I could see this like white light. It didn't look like necessarily the shape of a person, but it was like this white light energy floating above me. And in that moment, I was not only experiencing myself physically, I was having a physical experience lying in bed with my eyes closed, and my body was still like, my physical senses were still sensing and gaining information, right? Like your sight, your sound, touch, like all that was like still operating like physically in my body. But my awareness moved outside of it to watch it all at the same time. So it was like I actually had like two different types of awareness at the same time, very briefly. Because one, I had basically an awake body, and two, I had, the core of myself looking at the whole situation. And in that instant, this white light basically fused into my nervous system. And I watched this happen from that perspective. And at that same moment, I was also aware of the feeling of that light fusing into me. I could feel it physically. So not only was I feeling it physically and experiencing this thing go shoo into me, into my nervous system, I literally watched it happen from a third person perspective, so to speak. And so this is just another example. And my personal opinion right now is that, this was God's, basically the Holy Spirit entering into me. Now, I've been a Christian for a very long time, since I was 14, and I've gone through periods of agnosticism and a lot of doubt, and I still have many questions, and that's what this channel is basically about. And I may disagree with Christians on certain things, or at least I don't have an opinion on certain things that some Christians maybe think strongly about. But what I will say is that my faith is in Jesus right now, and it will remain that way. And I can get into the reasons for that later on. But the best that I can make of this situation, of that experience, is that I asked God for forgiveness, and then there was this white, pure light that fused into me. And the only way I can understand that is that's God's Spirit entering into me. Whether, and a lot of Christians would kind of... I've debated Christians in the past that would say, "Oh, maybe you were never a Christian because, for XYZ reason, and in that case, maybe you never had the Holy Spirit or something like that." I don't think it works that way. I don't really know if I have a lot of questions about Christianity, but the best analogy that I can think of when it comes to an experience like that is, God's Spirit, and I guess there are other ways that you can interpret that experience. But the reason I bring it up, and it's not something I want to get too deep into in this video. The reason I bring it up is because it fits into this whole, while you are in kind of a physical state of sleep or whatever, your consciousness, and in that case, I don't think I actually was asleep, but just the consciousness, the idea of the conscious awareness kind of being separate from the body and allowing you to experience things, whether good or bad, while your physical body is in another state altogether. So, there's a lot more I could say on all these topics. I will leave it at that for this video. I don't think I have anything else to go over regarding this topic. So my question to you is, have you had these kind of experiences? Number one. And also, my request is just don't think about this stuff as kind of all or nothing. Don't think of it as, oh, every time I have a sleep paralysis experience that I am dealing with a malevolent entity, or don't think of it as basically it's also, and also don't think of it only as a physical phenomenon, right? That's also the wrong way to think about it, because there are a lot of times when this is induced by a spiritual problem, whether that's an entity or maybe you're having nightmares or whatever it is. that's the trigger. Whereas sometimes it's not. And so my request is don't think about it as kind of one all the time or the other all the time. It's usually a mix of things, because we live in a real world, right? And there is a real spiritual reality. Like there's another dimension that exists beyond this one, in and around our physical dimension. And so, kind of taking things and hyper spiritualizing them is wrong and incorrect, and also taking a phenomenon or something that happens that we experience and just attribute it only to physical things is also incorrect, because we don't live in an all-physical universe and we don't live in an all-spiritual universe. We live in a universe that is multidimensional. So let me know if you guys have anything else, questions or anything. Post them in the comments, and hope you guys are having a great week. Go ahead and like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.